Alright, here we go. So now I'm going to disassemble the rear. So I shall disassemble the rear. I'm going to begin by removing the two dampers. And the dampers are very easy to remove. It's just two screws on each one. And that is it. Now, setting the position of these will depend on what your intended purpose. This truck here is made to be launched. It's a basher, so it's made for jumps. Well, I wouldn't say it's made for jumps. It's set up for jumps. So you'll notice that it's here and then it's on the outside. If racing is your intention and jumps are not really your intention, then you are probably going to go toward the outside at the bottom, and the top it just depends on the terrain. I mean, it also depends on the traction, the surface that you're running on. If you're getting a lot of traction, too little traction, so you would work with those. Man, all those little metal things. There's some that I had to pull out. So if you saw the previous video on how I was talking about running a metal spur with a metal pinion, how it removes little metallic material. All right. Now, if your Traxxas Slash comes with the plastic shocks, so let's just say you bought something other than a Platinum or an Ultimate, just replace the shocks, get the GTRs. Some people get the Proline shocks or other stuff. Just stick with Traxxas GTR shocks. I find them to be the best option, to be honest. I think the bore is 1 millimeter more than the Proline versions, which may not seem like a lot, but keep in mind it's a millimeter in diameter. So if you consider what surface area is and then volume, it makes quite a difference. Now for the sway bar, so we're going to go ahead and remove the sway bar. Sway bar, there's a variety of ways that we can do. We can just remove the full links right here. So we can remove it here, here, and just remove from the arms and keep the links with the bar, which is what I'm going to do. Or you could remove them here and separate the sway bar. Excuse me. So if you're replacing the sway bar, just remove it here and here. If you want to remove the entire thing, remove them here and here. Now something else here in the bumper. You will need to remove these two screws. These are 2.5 millimeter driver, and you just need to loosen them enough to pull the sway bar out. There. I'll loosen them just a little for the reinstallation. Now on the Slash 4x4, the sway bar doesn't have much leverage because they're so close to the fulcrum. There's this pivot point. So they do help slightly. You probably won't notice it much if you go to a soft sway bar. Soft sway bar isn't going to do much, but if you go with a thicker sway bar such as this one, that's when you start noticing the difference. So that's something else to consider. All right, so now here at the bottom, 2.5 millimeter driver, and we will just be removing these. Now here on the bottom, one of the things to note is if you look at my friend's vehicle, this here doesn't have any spacers. Now, spacers are something that you could add, you could delete, but you do not need any on the Traxxas Slash. If you start adding spacers, it's going to put these links at too much of an angle. They're going to angle back too much instead of being, well, as straight as possible up and down, which these are not straight up and down. They're actually already at an angle. So if you add spacers to the bottom, say this is the bottom, you would increase that angle. So don't add any spacers, you don't need them. Once you do this, you can just remove the rear sway bar. and that is it. So at this point, we can go ahead and remove the rear bumper. You need to remove the rear bumper to remove the arms, and you have 2 screws here and you have 2 screws at the bottom. Once you remove those, then you will have access to the arm pins. So the pins, suspension pins. We'll go ahead and remove this. Now for the rear, I will be accessing the differential. For the front, I don't think I will. We'll see. Just depends on my mood. I didn't have my Wheaties this morning, but we'll see. So we have this. Now the Slash bumper is actually really good out of the factory, but this one did receive an upgrade, so it does have an RPM bumper. The stock one is good enough. We're almost there. Here we go. All right. And then this will just slide out right in here. So be careful when you remove the rear bumper, and the reason why is this plate here may fall out. So just try not to lose this, because this is what holds the suspension pins. Now here there is an orientation, so if you look at one side's a little sharper, the other side's rounded off. The sharp side goes against the plastic. In other words, it goes forward on the rear. But once you remove this little plastic brace, that's it. Now you have access to the pins, so you can go ahead and remove these. Well, once you remove the bumper, you can go ahead and remove these. These feel smooth, all right, which is a good thing. They're supposed to be smooth. All right, this one pretty much will be run as soon as I take it apart, so there's no need for me to go through and clean. One thing I'm going to make a note is on Traxxas vehicles, for example the Slashes, it doesn't matter if it's 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive, the pins, make sure that the right side goes rear to front and that the left side goes front to rear. If not, they will back out, so that's something to note. That is something to note. So here, to remove the arm, you just remove after you remove that rear bumper, you remove the pin. Now you just remove this pin. And sometimes you have to pull and still twist on these here. These factory ones. Something else that you may want to consider is reaming. There we go. All right, so we'll leave that there. And that is it for the arm. I'm not going to do the other one. Once you do one, you do them both. But one of the things to keep in mind is there is a left and a right for the arms, so don't mix them. The shock positions go forward, and they're also marked here. So there's an R. You're probably not going to be able to see it on the camera, but there's an R. The other one's going to have an L. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now at this point, we can go ahead and remove the links. Now, let's see, the link that I will remove, I'll remove this one. That one there is just a screw. I mean, this one's just a screw too, but the reason why I'm removing this one is so that I can remove the rear carriers. All right, so now my rear carriers are free. So once they are free, let's see, these hexes do not have a set screw, so I should be able to just pull these out. It's one of those moments where I wish I had brought my flathead, which I did not, so I'm hoping I can stick these in there. And I can't. Wow, this is tough. This is really on there. There. Yeah, this was, there's no way I was going to be able to remove that with my bare hands. Alright, so once you remove that, be careful not to lose this pin. So you have a pin right in here, so we'll set that right in there. And that's what creates the rotation. So now at this point I can go ahead and remove this. Now be careful when you remove it, because you can have shims and you do not want to lose the shims. So we have that shim. That shim helps protect the bearing against that pin there so that the pin doesn't rub on the bearing and destroy it. Now in order to remove the bearings, you're just going to stick a driver. There's going to be a gap between the front and the rear bearing. So just stick your driver in that gap and then just push. And then go off to the other side. And then we're going to go to the top, off to the side, down to the bottom. Sometimes they come out easily, sometimes they do not. Here, they're not coming out easily. If they do not come out easily, you can actually use some type of lubricant. WD-40 works, liquid wrench. There's a variety of other brands, or you can just dump these in oil. Light viscosity though, and it will lubricate them enough to release the bearings. So as you can see, the bearings are being released. And then be careful with your fingers. You don't want to stab your thumb with whatever driver you're using. But that is it. Yeah, that spins. All right. It's just making sure that would spin. And now you can see that bearing there, so now I can just press that one out and it's the same process. So I'm not going to do that. You do one, you do them all. Now, in order to remove this, I just need to remove that bit there. So usually on Traxxas vehicles, these will be a 1.5. I think in a previous video I may have said 0.5, but it's 1.5. Here we go. And I'm just going to set it there. Now, these are the shafts I like. I like these. These are the Traxxas steel shafts. I think I said shocks, I meant shafts. These are strong. These are a lot better than the plastic ones. Mainly because of this portion. That's generally where you break them here on the joints. But these are great. I do not remember the price. They could be $60, $70 for a pair, possibly. All right, so here we're going to go ahead and remove this side too, because I do want to access the differential and I don't want all of this just hanging, dangling. So we'll go ahead and remove that. And at this point I'm going to go ahead and remove the shock tower. So the shock tower is quite simple. It's just 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, and should be a 2mm, because I want to remove the shock tower. If you just remove these two and then these bottom two, you should be able to open the differential case, but I'm just going to go ahead and remove everything. So here we go. Right there, we have 1. Here we will have 2. Perfect. And now we have another one down here, and then one that mirrors it. Now Now notice there is a difference in length. The shorter ones go on top, the longer ones go on the bottom. Make sure you don't mix those two up. Alright, here we go. Now, one of the things that I do recommend on these vehicles is the factory rear oil is fine. You can leave it on the differential, but on the front, I go with something a little bit thicker oil on the front. But let me show you the shock tower. So the shock tower is pretty simple. Those two screws will remove the links, and then these screws up here will remove the mounting, body mounting system. We'll leave that off to the side. And here we go, we have the differential. Now the differential does have a gap because that is where the shock tower sits. But now we can access the case. So if you look at the case is very simple to open, or at least it should be. And one moment. And I'm just leaving it here because I do not want to get any dirt out. Now, this gear here, be careful, if I just push on this will fall out. So if you had to replace this gear, all you do is just push that inside. I guess I might as well do it. I will go ahead and do it. There. So it's off. That's the gear, and there's a bearing there, so it just sits on that bearing. And I'm going to go ahead and replace it. There it is. Now there is plenty of grease in here for now. Some grease in there. All right, good. One of the things too is when you're removing this, keep in mind the orientation. So if you look at it this way, your teeth, these are going to go on the right side, so they will go on this side. I'll go ahead and remove it, place it this way, and place the differential here. Alright, so differential is something that needs to be serviced from time to time, and it's one of the things that is easily forgotten. All that you have to do is remove these 4 screws, and that is it. Now, if you want to check your differential, make sure it's working, just grab the gear, spin one side. You don't have to remove it, to be honest, from the vehicle, but this should spin the opposite direction, just like that. Right, assuming your vehicle is stock. So here, just to show you what it looks like on the inside. Now, I've done this on other vehicles, on some of my other teardowns, I believe, with the T-Max. That's one. I opened up one completely. And if you have been following all of them, all of my teardowns, then you have seen this before. But keep in mind that I'm still doing this again because somebody may be watching this for the first time, or only has a Slash 4x4, or maybe is planning on buying a used Slash 4x4 and wants to get an idea of what components there are. Traxxas vehicles, I would say, are pretty simple to work on. I'm backing them out, so I'm going to start removing them now completely. Right there. So you have that helical gear there, which is covered in grease. This almost looks like somebody went in there and just dabbed a bunch of grease. But one of the things that you're going to know is it's that helical gear. There's going to be a helical gear down here at the bottom, so this is attached to another helical gear. And then you have these two, why do I keep saying helical? Conical gears. You have these conical gears, and then there's a shaft that connects these two, and they just sit there. So what happens when you spin one, it'll spin those gears. So as I'm spinning this way, so I'm spinning right, so clockwise, notice that it's spinning these gears in the opposite direction, which means that this one is going to spin to the left or counterclockwise. But that's it. That's how a differential works. And it allows for the difference in rotational speed between one wheel and the other. That's the whole purpose. So that way, when you take a turn, your axle doesn't bind. All right, so now I'm just setting these in, and I'm just gonna drive these in a little, drive them all just a small bit. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and just tighten everything fully. Let's see. And then I'm gonna reassemble everything quickly, especially since I already found the problem and it was a very simple problem. I'm glad it was a simple problem. All right, now I'm not gonna tighten them fully yet. All right, here we go. Da-da-da. Now this would be the time to add grease to the teeth if you needed to add grease. And it's also the time to, there we go, tighten these. So you can just add grease to the gears. All right, once you add grease to it, you're just going to place this in there. But don't forget about the bearing, as I did. There it is. So we'll do that, and after this, this side just goes toward the bottom. I'm trying not to move this too much. I don't want dirt in there. I'll be honest, you really want to clean all of that, so make sure you clean everything. But once that's there, you can just go ahead and hold this as is. The bumper is going to screw onto here. But first we're going to do the shock tower. So the shock tower is going to go up here, and I'm doing this because I want to close that gap. There we go. Remember, the long screws go on the bottom. So we'll go ahead and tighten these two. And here we go. Right in here. And those two, I went ahead and just tightened the whole way. Now I'm going to do the top. Now, something that I do have that I would recommend is if you buy a paintbrush, preferably a synthetic one, and then you cut the bristles off, so you only have about 2 to 3 centimeters, so say inch to 1.25 inches, and then you can just brush most of this off. Most of this will come off. Although, again, air compressor will do the job as well. So here, I'm going to go ahead and back this out. One of the things that you're going to notice is these here have a flat side and then a hole, so just line up the hole and the flat sides. So line up the flat sides and then the hole, and it should just slide right in. There's no reason for you to have a challenge with this. All right, that is it. So now you just place the arm and then you just slide a pin in there. And that is it. All right. And we will go ahead and install this. I find it easier to install the shaft if your arm is off. Do the shaft first. If your arm is on, I mean, don't worry about it. Then again, if your arm is off, then go see a doctor. There we go. And remember the arms, there's a right and a left. You'll have a letter right in there. And just remember the shocks go forward. So this goes forward, these mounting positions. And also the bridge goes down low. This goes down low. Now if you do break the arms, you actually have multiple options. One option, you can get the RPM arms, so arms made by RPM, or you could get the Traxxas winter arms. That is another option. All right, so now to reassemble a hobby, you would just press one bearing in and then press the other one in. That would be it. Just make sure they're pretty straight. If the bearing is at an angle, it's not going to want to slide in smoothly. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and install it here in the shaft. And do not forget about the washer. Now it's your choice. You can assemble this section here and put the hex on, or, why is this not going in? Or you can go ahead and just mount it on to the arm. I am doing the hex first. Here is the hex. All right, perfect. And now I can do this. Now remember, when you're installing these pins, the right side goes rear to front, and the left side goes front to rear. I'm going to go ahead and place this here. Right in here. Then you grab your 2.5mm driver, and then you just drive this in. Snug, you do not want to over tighten anything. Also, buy quality tools. Do not try to do this with just cheap Allen wrenches. One, the tool will damage, which will damage the screw eventually, and your fingers are gonna hurt. All right, now we're gonna mount this. Now remember, there's a side that's a little more rounded, and there's a side that's a little more sharp. Sharp side goes toward the plastic. So this will just seat here. Once it's sat there, you can go ahead and just grab the bumper, and this will slide right on. So it's gonna slide here, and it's gonna slide in there. Just like that. Once you have that, you're going to grab these screws here, the short ones that you had, countersunk, and you'll go ahead and just drive them in. Now I'm gonna set this one, and then I'm gonna drive the other one, and then I'll drive this one. So this one I'm just gonna get close. It just allows you to line up the parts a lot easier. Here we go. And there. And here. All right, go ahead and place the second one. And then once these 2 screws are there, then I can go ahead and install the sway bar. And again, everything's in reverse order, so usually what you remove first will go last, what you remove last will go first. The only reason why I said usually is because yes, the sway bar is the first thing I removed, so it's the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and install. But there's a few things that you can mix the orders, right? If you remove this top link first and the arm second, you could put the arm first and then the link second. You just have to see what you can reverse, what not. But good rule of thumb is if you remove it first, install it last. So do reverse order. All right, there. Now we just need to do this other bull stud. And again, for the sway bars for the Slash 4x4, in order for them to make a significant difference, you have to go with stiffer sway bars just because of the angle here. If you had, for example, a Techno or some of the other brands, the sway bar goes almost halfway to the arm. So the sway bars work more efficiently. You can get away with lighter sway bars. All right, so here you want to line it up. And you're going to drive these screws. They're going to be close, but you do not want them to impede the sway bar from moving freely. And the reason why is because then, well, you kind of lose the purpose. These screws are really just there to prevent the sway bar from falling out. It's not the best system in the world, but it's good enough for this. Usually you want sway bars with little collars so they can set on the collars and they don't shift left and right like this one is shifting. There. And that's it. So that's the rear end. All we have to do now is install the dampers. And when you install these, the larger flange here, this is where the screw goes. So this will go up against the body and then the screw will just go up here. So I'm gonna go middle hole. Here on the top, that's where it was installed originally. So we'll go ahead and place it there. Now we'll do the bottom. And the bottom I will do in the penultimate hole. Well, I guess if you're counting from the inside out, it would be the second hole. Second available hole. Very first holes for the sway bar. Then the shock holes, 1, 2. So this is number 2. And that is it. Now all I have to do is just install the very last one and everything will be complete. And on the next video, we'll move on to the front end. I may also put all the videos together and just have one massive video showing the entire process. We'll see. That's something I have to decide later on. And again, we're matching the holes, so we want everything to be a mirror image. And that is it. So, rear end, broke it down and rebuilt it. Thank you so much for watching. Oh.
Oh, what? Oh, my hair! My tongue! My rod!